So when Chiedozie told me he was no longer eating bread, I was like, oh, that's interesting because I had started it as well. Honestly, I found it very impossible to believe because I tried staying away from bread for 1 week and I couldn't.
Why? What did bread ever do to you?
This man, what is wrong with you?
I've always thought you would eventually eat bread. I didn't believe that you go this long without it.
Big ups to him. That shows a lot of dedication and grit.
People eat bread so much that the only time you find someone not eating bread is in cases like my own, which is very rare. Like, people don't just wake up and say, I'm not eating bread again. And if a doctor says you need to stop eating bread. Before now, bread was my snack, it was my food. How else can you quantify self-control? For me to actually stop eating bread was a big move. It's still a big move. Hi, my name is Chiedozie, and I'm a software engineer. I'm a go-getter, basically. I'm someone who likes to go for things, make them happen. And especially when people say those things are impossible or almost impossible, then I like to go for it. And so basically over the years, I've found myself going from achieving some goals. I've lost some, but that's just how I am. I keep going, always on the move, what's next, and all of that. And so basically, I found myself in a situation, an environment where things are not being handed over to you. So you have to go get them. And so that has been most of my drive growing up and being the person I am today. That has been most of my drive. Nobody gives you anything, you just have to go for it. I'm not too outgoing. I'm someone who likes to relax, observe, and then decide. So I don't really go out much. I don't really hang out with a lot of people. I have very few friends, but anyone I eventually call my friend goes through a vetting process in my head. So you won't find me where you find a lot of people, but I feel like what's important is surrounding yourself with the right kind of people. I play football occasionally. I go to the gym occasionally. Although there was a period I was constantly in the gym, like my gym instructor had to tell me, okay, calm down, instead of coming 4 times, come 3 times. You're taking this thing too seriously. But yeah, that was literally me a while ago. But yeah. The whole no bread challenge started from a visit I had. So my brother came around and he stayed with me for say like a week, and his analysis of my lifestyle at the end of that week was, you need to reduce the amount of bread you take. And so I was like, And so I decided that, I'll just do a 30 days no bread challenge. And that's where this whole thing started from. It was just a 30 days no bread challenge that was turned into a year plus now. My first reactions when I started out with the no bread challenge, to be honest, I was nervous because at that time bread was like my main meal. Like, bread doesn't finish in my fridge, basically. I actually have 2 loaves of bread in my fridge at any point in time. And so basically I get bread. When this one is remaining like 8 slices or so, I go and buy another one. Like, I don't wait for bread to finish in my fridge. And so if I wake up in the morning, bread and tea. While I'm working, I snack on bread, literally. Like, then before I go to bed, I'm watching a movie or something, I just like get bread, like squeeze it up. And but I guess looking back, it was too much. It was too much.
So when Chiedozie told me he was no longer eating bread, I was like, oh, that's interesting because I had started it as well. Although we had different reasons, but at those beginning stages, it was nice to have somebody else that was going through the same struggle.
I remember when I started posting that, oh, okay, on this bread challenge, some people were like, what has bread done to you? Well, it's not going to last.
So when I first heard you were doing the whole no bread challenge thing, honestly, I found it very impossible to believe because I tried staying away from bread for 1 week and I couldn't. About without bread for 1 year. That is something. That is really something. Honestly, it's pretty impressive.
And that's basically because of the kind of terrain I find myself. Bread is like a normal food. Like people even make fun of the scripture in the Bible that says, "Give us this day our daily bread." I think that's the Lord's Prayer. And so we love bread in this part of the world, and so is unheard of.
So, talking about how I reacted when I first heard Chiedozie was off bread. This man! What is wrong with you? But he has really committed to that journey, and I know he has taken ownership of it, so that's really good. But Jesus is bread of life, so I continue to eat bread, but not so much anyway. And I think Chiedozie kind of inspired that.
So people eat bread so much that the only time you find someone not eating bread is in cases like my own, which is very rare. Like people don't just wake up and say, "I'm not eating bread again." Very, very rare, right? And if a doctor says you need to stop eating bread, like those are the only times you're ever going to see someone not eating bread. As long as they have the money to get the bread, they're going to eat bread. And so it was like people were like, "Are you okay? What's going on? Like, why are you doing this?"
My initial reaction to the no bread challenge was, why? Like, what did bread ever do to you? I've always thought you would eventually eat bread. Like, I didn't believe that you go this long without it. And I was like devil's advocate. I was trying to tempt you into it. So, actually impressed that you've gone this long without bread. I know people that cannot go a week without bread. And yeah.
Why are you doing this? This was just the beginning of my journey, and I didn't know that it was going to be a long one. It's so long that it's still ongoing. Many people thought it was impossible to stay without bread at all. But for the past 1 year, I've stayed without it. This is my story. I stopped eating bread because I had a visit from someone very close to me, my brother, and he literally told me the amount of bread you're eating is too much. So either you reduce it or you switch. Say start eating white bread instead of this regular fatty bread. And so I took it upon myself like, oh okay, I'm just going to like do a 30 days challenge and eat very little bread. But in the 30 days, I'll have no bread at all. Then afterwards, I'm going to like ration the amount of bread I eat. And that's how it all started. It was just like a challenge to myself based on the advice I got from my brother. And even today, my brother can't imagine how far I've taken it. So before now, I used to eat like a whole lot of bread. Before now, bread was my snack, it was my food, it was my go-to. There's no food in the house, bread. If I'm in a hurry, bread. If like bread was just everything to me. Like growing up, I mean bread was like normal. Like an average Nigerian, it's like bread is breakfast. Like ask an average person, what's your breakfast? It's literally bread and tea or bread and something. Like bread, 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 bread. And so I've I ate so much bread growing up and even as an adult that this was a very big decision to make. And so I can't even say bread never finishes in my fridge. Literally, what I do is when it's bread like 8 slices, I take out I look at it, oh, it's almost going to finish, so I go and buy another one before that one finishes. So by the time I'm taking the last slices in the new bread, in the old bread, there's already a full loaf of bread waiting. That's how serious it was. But at the beginning of my journey, it was a bit tense because the first few questions that came to my mind was, what am I going to eat in place of bread? Is breakfast. What am I going to do? What am I going to eat? How fast am I going to do these things? How will I cope? It was just a whole lot of questions. And I remember just a few days after I decided to start the journey, a couple of friends came to my house knowing that I've decided not to eat bread again. And guess what? They came to my house with 2 loaves of bread that were just made that morning. And they were like, oh, we want to make, there's something they call mishai, right, in Nigeria. They want to make mishai. I was like, okay, why is it my house you have decided to make this mishai? And they're like, oh, that it's just that they just bought it on their way and they decided to just say, oh, since we are coming to his house, let's just make it there. And they finished making this mishai and they left like half of one of the loaves. And I kept on looking at this thing. I was like, I think can I just restart the clock to have a bite of this bread? But then it didn't work out. And so I decided to leave it. I think it was a test of my discipline at this point. So I think there was a day I really wanted to eat bread. After I've started the whole journey of no bread and all of this, I really, really wanted it. So I kept on holding myself, trying not to do it. And eventually I had to like overfeed on, was it rice or something like that. I had to like eat something else in excess so that my stomach would like be really full just to kill the craving of bread. And then randomly, sometimes I go to the supermarket, I want to get something. Remember, getting bread for me was almost like a routine before now. And so sometimes I randomly go to the supermarket and I'm picking things up. And before you know, I'm in the bread section. I'm in the bread section. And they're like, oh, sorry. You're doing a no bread stuff. And so I literally get myself back, you know, try to say, oh, okay, like, you said you're not going to eat bread again, so go with it. And so basically, that's how it has been for most of the time. I've just been at that initial stage, it was quite difficult because people, every time I post it, oh, 15 days without bread, and people are like, wow, I can't even stay 3 days. I can't even do this. I think there was a time I posted it and someone literally, it was a funny guy. He told me, as I'm looking at this, your update, I'm literally eating bread. I was like, oh my god, you guys shouldn't do this. And I just kept holding. I think at some point, it no longer became about my health. It now became about a test of discipline. I was also trying to let my body know that you can actually do without this, right? You can do without this, and you can actually live a healthy life without all this stuff, right? If you didn't have the money to get bread, would you die? And so basically, that's how I found myself most of the time. And so that initial phase was difficult. So in place of bread, I found myself eating beans a lot, right? I tried to eat more beans and I was also eating a whole lot of gari, um, soup, rice and stew. And so basically, these are my replacements, right? And I know some people will be like, oh, you're not eating bread, or you're eating gari, right? I'm going to say why I actually stopped eating bread. The reason I stopped eating bread was because I was scared of the amount of preservatives that some bread manufacturers were using to preserve the bread, right? People at some point want to make profit at all costs. And so it doesn't really matter what the cost is, they're not going to make a loss. And so it means adding more preservatives that are good for them as a business, but bad for your body doesn't matter to them. And so that was one of my greatest fears. That was one of my greatest fears about bread. They definitely affected my cooking habits. So like I said earlier, I don't like to eat outside because I think I had an experience that really changed my mindset on eating outside. So there was a time I decided to make sauce, this flour sauce that you can use to eat rice. So you can use it instead of stew. You can use it. So it's corn flour basically. And so I got all my vegetables ready: carrots, cabbage. No, not cabbage. Cabbage. It wasn't there. So carrots and some other veggies like green pepper and the rest of them. I got them together and I was making flour sauce that day. And for some reason, as I was cooking, I kept on spicing it, and the spice didn't seem to be taking any effect. Maybe the spice wasn't strong or something, but for whatever reason, the spice wasn't showing up in my taste. So I just kept on adding the spice. And at the point I said, well, nobody knows that you're eating this food, right? This is your food. If it tastes well, it's your business. If it doesn't taste well, it's your business. What your body knows is that you have eaten, and what you've eaten is healthy, and that's what matters. And so I decided to stop adding it. But then I thought to myself, I said, if this food was probably prepared in a fast food, they're not going to stop adding this spice. They will keep adding it until the taste comes out because it's for public consumption, and the public doesn't really care if the food they're eating is healthy or not. That's the truth. What they care about is if the food is tasty or not. And that will decide if they're going to come back to you or not. And so basically, the mindset when you cook your own food is totally different from the mindset when food is cooked for public consumption. And so basically, it changed my cooking habits. Now that I wasn't eating bread, which was almost like fast food, I had to start cooking a lot more. A lot more. I'm not even joking, like a lot more. Like I cook a lot more. Oh my god. So one of the effects I found out while after quitting bread was I noticed that my legs were not as swollen as they used to be. And so basically, I've done quite a little bit of research, and I know that one of the warning signs that your kidney is being overstressed or your kidney is having some slight issues is that your feet begins to swell. And I think that swelling doesn't just start from the feet itself, it starts from the toes, right? The toes. And so basically, um, while I was heavy on bread, my toes were a bit chubby, right? They felt fatter and shorter. But after I stopped bread, that very first week I stopped, I could see my toe bones like again, like I could see them. And so I knew that this was probably the right um, direction I was going. Secondly, I felt bloated from time to time while I was constantly on bread. So sometimes I can just be sleeping in the night and feel like, oh, I feel so full. Even if I probably didn't eat that night, but I'll feel so full. When I stopped bread, all that unnecessary, unexpected bloating just went away. And so these are two major signs I saw, and I know that I'm probably on the right track. Well, I lost some kg um, while I dropped off bread, but I don't know if it's specifically attributed to the bread or if it had anything to do with my lifestyle, because basically that same period I stopped bread, I was taking 10,000 steps every day and all of that. So I don't know if it was the bread in this particular case that made me lose weight. I'm not sure if it's the bread or the exercise because that same period I was taking about 10,000 steps. But for my toes being looking a bit chubby, I used to work out heavily, right? Before then, while I was eating bread and all of this. So when I was working out, when your muscle mass grows, you're literally adding weight. So I was like about 89 kg then, right? I think I checked my weight before shooting this documentary and it was like 82.5, something like that. And so I literally dropped almost 9, 8, 9 kg since the time I stopped eating bread without much exercise. And so I suspect it's the bread, but I don't know. So basically, I'm a go-getter. I'm somebody that likes to go for goals, right? I'm somebody that if you tell me this thing is impossible or this thing, it seems hard, are you sure you'll be able to do it? That's what I want to do now. The easiest way to motivate me is to make me believe that it's impossible to do something. And I'll give you one example. There are many examples of this in my life. I'll just give you one example. When I was going for NYSC, I spoke with someone who was already finishing her service. And I told her, I think when I go to camp, I want to get a good posting. And so I'm going to try to be very active in camp so that I can be either the platoon commander or platoon leader or the overall parade commander. And she looked at me and she laughed. Let me try to mimic her voice. You think it's easy? That's literally what she said. I was like, yeah, it's not easy. I think that's why I want to do it. And she was like, okay, now go ahead. And so I keep saying it. If you want to motivate me, just tell me it's impossible. Because I think I find more motivation trying to prove people wrong sometimes than able to achieve it for myself. Like if I look at a goal and it's not so appealing to me, another thing that may motivate me to do it is people saying it's not possible. And so staying out of bread was one of those things a lot of people told me, don't worry, it's not going to pass 1 week. You will chop bread. You know, that period, people literally offered to make bread for me. I think it was just a way of them trying to show me that, oh, just have bread. What has bread done to you? You know, but I think that was now the time for me to step up and say, I'm really going to do this bread stuff and I'm going to complete it. And so, in as much as it looked difficult, it taught me a whole lot about self-control. It taught me that whatever you want to do, if your mind is in it, you will do it. Nothing can stop you. If a Nigerian with money, without health conditions, without doctor's reports, decides to stop eating bread, how else do you define self-control? And determination. Oh my God. This whole no bread stuff also made me more conscious of my health. And guess what? As at this moment I'm making this video, a couple of people have reached out to me and they told me, I've done a 7 days no bread challenge, I've done a 14 days no bread challenge, I've done a 30 days no junk or any stuff like that. I've done 15 days no carbonated. Like it has usually motivated some people around me to like take their health more seriously. For me, it also spilled into other areas. And so you find me more cautious about what I eat. And one of them is that I now take unsweetened yogurt because I feel like we have a whole lot of sugar coming from other things we eat, like rice, yam. Like sugar is in almost every food that we eat, right? And so I just felt like the extra processed sugar is not so necessary. I mean, we eat sugar unwillingly in any part of the world. In your cake, there's sugar. In your bread, there's sugar. In your anything you want to eat, there's sugar in it. And so I just felt like adding that extra stress of sugar through the drinks you take, it's not worth it. So along the way, I think I became more mentally aware. Like I became more aware that your life is your decision. Your life is your decision. And so if at any point in time I feel like I can actually control what I do, when I do it, where I do it, the bread challenge is like a reminder to me. It kind of tells me that it's possible for me to actually decide to do something and stick with it. It was not easy to consistently say no to bread. Um, but I think one of the things that kept me going, number one, was how far I've already gone. So I think when I was at the 150 or so, 102, 100, stuff like that, I was already like, oh my God, you've already done 149 days, you've already done 200 days. How do you want to stop now? And so I just kept going, right? I just kept going. And so basically, that was most of what kept me going. Also, at some point, I literally started losing interest in bread, right? There was this time I wanted to go see my mom, and I got to a supermarket, and I perceived this very nice bread. You know, from the from the aroma of the bread, you could just tell that it was very good and soft. I knew my sister was at home too, so I just decided to get it. And when I got there, my sister just opened the bread and she was tearing it apart. And I kept perceiving the bread, but I felt like indifferent about it. Like I didn't even feel like bread was there, right? Before, I combined bread with granules, bread with beans, bread with pap, bread with tea, bread alone, bread with water, Nutella. Ah, I was a bread king, bready. But yeah, it was at some point I wasn't even feeling tempted by bread anymore because I've stayed so long without it. The lessons I've learned so far not eating bread is self-control is possible. You just have to decide how important it is to you, right? I mean, if you could stay as a Nigerian without eating bread, how else can you compare? How else can you quantify self-control, right? That was like a very big move for me because at the point I stopped, I was literally depending on bread for most of my food. Like I eat bread in the morning. There was no week I don't eat bread so much. For me to actually stop eating bread, it was a big move. It was. It's still a big move. It also affected the way I see food, not just bread now, every other food. Because I was now more cautious about what I was eating. I started looking at what I eat a lot, not just because I was like, if I've taken this very big step to stay away from bread, which I love so much, I should not be jeopardizing that by eating something else that is probably even more um, detrimental than the bread I was trying to avoid. And so it affected me not eating junk, um, a lot of fried things. Like it just affected the way I now approached food. You know, one of the ways we get sick in this part of the world, as human beings generally, is by what we eat. And so if you can really control what you eat as a human being, then there's a high chance, it's not certain, but there's a higher chance that you will live a more healthy life than someone who just eats it. So whenever I see bread now, I just see victory. You know, bread is never going to mean the same thing it used to mean to me back then. Before, bread was just like something I love to eat, something I readily jump on, and all of that. But now, when I see bread, I see victory. Like it's something I was able to do without for quite a period of time, right? It's something I was able to do for quite a period, stay without for quite a period of time. And so even if I start eating bread today, I've already stayed 1 year without eating bread. And so that's something already, right? I was able to tell my body that you can actually stay without this and survive without this. And so that's how I see bread now. It has a different meaning to me than it used to. Now that I've not eaten bread for 1 year, there is still a possibility for me to go back to bread. There's still a possibility for me to go back to bread. And in fact, I even wrote something down as to the terms and conditions for me to go back to bread. There are other conditions, but one of the main conditions is this. Remember, I stopped eating bread because of preservatives, right? And so this is one of the conditions I wrote about it. So let me read what I've written about it. I said, on this note, I will go back to eating bread. If I can make bread at home, then I'll most likely eat it. And the reason why I can do that is because if I now make my own bread, I will not need to add preservatives, because within that day or the next day, I would have eaten the bread. And so there's no need to add preservatives. And so what my body is going to be processing at that time is just the ingredients in the bread itself, not the preservatives. And so if you're making a homemade bread, what are you adding preservatives for? Right? So if I get to that point where I can make bread at home, definitely I will most likely go back to bread. Because I love bread. I love bread. I love bread. But yeah, I have a chance of going back. So if I'm to advise someone that is considering giving up eating bread, this is the kind of advice I'm going to give to you. I'm a software engineer, and so I'm exposed to a lifestyle called the sedentary lifestyle. For someone who doesn't move around a lot, someone who sits down for a long period of time, your body doesn't process things as fast as it would for maybe someone who walks around every day or stuff like that, right? So for someone who has less metabolism based on the kind of work you do, you have to be very careful about what you're eating, because if you eat a cup of cake and I eat a cup of cake, with my sedentary lifestyle, it may take a while for my body to process all of that, right? So my advice is this: before you decide to stop eating bread, just consider your kind of lifestyle. Do you move around a lot? How frequently do you eat bread? Depending on those answers, you can either decide to cut down on bread, right? Or you can decide to stop it completely for a period of time, right? Bread isn't bad per se. What's actually bad in bread is the level of preservatives. From my own research, it's just the level of preservatives, right? So your why is as important as the action. So just make your why worth it. That's what's going to keep you going. In my life, there are a lot of things I've considered impossible. Eating bread is one of them. If someone had told me that I would be able to stay this long without eating bread, I would doubt it heavily. Because initially, this wasn't even like the initial goal. The initial goal was just to stay 30 days without eating bread. But when I got to 30, I asked myself, why not 31? Why not 32? Keep going. And before you know, I said, okay, let me just make it 40. And from 40, I said, it's 2 months now. So I keep going. I just kept going. And here I am, over 370 days without bread. And that's more than a year. I mean, if I can do it, I think like any other person can do it. But your motive for staying away from bread shouldn't be because someone else did it. Examine the kind of lifestyle you live, consider the kind of food you eat. Your case may not be bread, maybe something else. And so don't waste your time trying to mimic what I did. Instead, find what you need to stay away from and then do the needful.